Do I have to be recorded as well, or?
Yes, I fear you have, sorry.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having the floor. I'm going to talk about activating citizens by using big data. And he's right, we're very creative, so I'm going to tell you something about it. But I want to start with something else, because not many people know, but Antwerp is an Olympic city. That's one of the reasons we're here today. We hosted the Olympics in 1920, which were very important Olympic Games just after World War I, because it was all going about peace. So next year we are celebrating our 100th anniversary, and a lot of people don't know, even in Antwerp, that we're an Olympic city. So one of the big tasks we have is to create awareness around the Olympics. And we started with it, and we made a little movie. Don't worry, it's less than 2 minutes. And I wanted to share that with you. It's a sneak preview. You're the first audience that sees the movie. So let's look at it. It's very short, but it gives you an... Just to introduce Antwerp and the Olympics. Okay, let's go on to the topic why you're here. We're quite ambitious as the city of Antwerp to activate our people, because that's our goal. We want 100% active city. And the question is, why do we want? And that's, I think you all know that, but that's a list of diseases related to inactivity. A few cancers, hypertension, metabolic syndrome, etc. I'm not going to read them all because you all know that. And this is what the World Health Organization says. We're at number 4 with physical inactivity in the row of cause of death. And if you look at 1 and 5, they're also related to inactivity. So it's a really worse problem, and we know that in 2050 around 70% of the people will live in cities, so cities have really a very important role in tackling inactivity. This is a study that was published in The Lancet, a leading medical magazine. So there's not only a health cost, there's not only a personal cost, a social cost, but also a financial cost. About $53.8 billion worldwide. And inactivity is killing more than 5 million people every year, so it's really serious business. It's not about fun only. Every 5 years we do research of a survey in our city about activity, and this is what we learn about that. 60% of all the people in Antwerp do sports every week, and 10% they say they want to do sports, but they experience barriers. That's what we call the potential sporter. And 30% says we don't want to do sport because we're not interested, we hate sports, or we have physical problems or whatever. So we want a 100% active city, and this is our strategy. It's a simple strategy, because I believe that a good strategy is a simple one that everybody understands. Number one is 60% are sporting, so keep the 60% sporting. It's quite simple. 2, activate the potential sporter. That's the low-hanging fruit, people who want to do sports, but they face barriers. In Antwerp live around 520,000 people, so 10%, that's about activating 50,000 people. And the 30%, they don't want to do sports, we want to start with to make them physical active. That's what the professor in the beginning of this day said. It's not about sporting for those people, we want to make them physical active, that's the beginning. Maybe later they can do sports, but we'll see. If we manage that, we have a 100% active city. We have, on all 3 topics, extensive programs in the city, but today I'm only going to talk about number 2, activating the potential sporter. So this is the sport participation, or the evolution of the sport participation in Antwerp. We started between 2010 and 17. So we started on 53 and we're now around 60, as I said. For those who wonder what that little mountain is in 13 and 14, now in 13 Antwerp was the European capital of sports, and we did a lot of promotion and communication in that year, so that had an effect. So actually we're doing quite well. So the question is, why would we innovate? Why would we try to do something else? Well, the reason is that we see that there's a kind of stagnation the last 2-3 years. We have the feeling that we reached the limits of our traditional activation model. That combined with a lot of new trends in sports and leisure, and I will talk later on about those trends, and a technological revolution that is underway, made us think up that we need to create a new strategy on activation. As I said, we focus only on the potential sporter, and we created an innovative strategy to activate that potential sporter. 4 things: user-centric. We want to work with profiles, develop new products and strategies, and of course use big data. Not of course, but use big data. I will explain why it is of course at the end of my presentation. Let me tell you something about user-centric, the first topic. I'm simplifying it a little bit, but our traditional activation model is basically about 2 things. That's one, supporting sport clubs. We have around 1,000 sport clubs in Antwerp, and we support them with money, we subsidize them with knowledge, with infrastructure, etc. We see that as the cornerstone of our activation, our sports field. Very important for us. And in addition to that, an additional sports offer for those people who are not active in the sports club. That's very simple, our traditional activation model. And that's a pretty top-down model. And that doesn't fit with the new trends we're seeing today. What we see, not only in Antwerp but in a lot of cities, is that the individual choice is getting more important. People want to do sports where and whenever they want. They not only want to do sports on the hours that the sports clubs want them to do too, but whenever it fits them. We see that there are a lot of new sports emerging, like urban sport, or every classical sport got an urban version. Basketball has got this 3x3, gymnastics, the calisthenics and free running, and etc. So what we see is that potential sporters, they face barriers, and that these barriers of course vary, they're different from person to person, and it's difficult to resolve that with a top-down approach. So our conclusion is, we need to understand the needs and requirements of the individuals, and then we have to create a tailored offer, and that's what we call a user-centric approach. Okay, we did a lot of research around these barriers, and what we see that they're very different. Those barriers are going from too expensive, no time, no infrastructure, no idea which kind of sport I like, etc. And what we also learned is that those barriers are connected to individuals. It depends on the age, the gender, the socioeconomic position, the place where you live, that all gets influence to the barriers. So we created 10 profiles with different barriers, which we cover 80% of the potential sports people. So now we know the dreams, the barriers, the desires of our potential sporters. We know a lot about them with those 10 profiles. And this, I'm not going to read it all, and you don't have it either, but this is just an example of such a profile. In this case, it's an adult with a sedentary job. We know a lot of their dreams, fears, and obstacles. We know things about their financial situation, health, mobility, use of media. That last thing is, for instance, important if you want to reach them. My children are using Snapchat, I don't, and this lady probably also not. She's using Spotify, Netflix, and Tinder, etc. These are the motivations for her to work out or to do sports, and the excuses and reasons not to. And these are possible new offers for this profile. So that's how we have done it. And once we know, or once we have those profiles, we started to create new products, or it's not always a new product that is needed. Sometimes it's a new strategy or just adapted communication that will lead to activation. Now, that's maybe a lot of, or too much theory, so I will make it clear with a simple example. And this is one of the profiles we have identified, and that's a very common one, I think. A mother with kids, and the case is, it's a mother, it's a potential sporter. She says, I would like to do sports, but I have 2 kids, and I come home, I have to cook, and my kids are involved in a sports club. So after our meal, I become a taxi driver, and I drive my kids to the sports club a few times a week, and after that we go home, I put them in bed, and then I fall exhausted in the couch, and I watch some television and go to sleep. So I want to, but when and how should I do sports? So we started working with this case, and the solution we found is that we just followed with it. We followed the lady her evening, and what we saw is she drove to the sports club, and then she becomes a spectator. She starts sitting on a stool, on a chair, and she watches her children do sports. So what we developed now is, together with sports clubs, a sports offer for parents during the time that their children are doing sports. So from passive spectators, they become active sporters. It's a simple thing, but it works because it's a win for all parties. The mother is active, and there's a social component in it as well, because they learn the other parents know better. And for sport clubs, they see extra members in the club. So that's just one example of a new product that can be developed to activate people. So there's a lot of work in this, because we have to find new products or new types of communication to all those profiles and all those barriers. So we have a personalized offer right now for all those potential sport people. But what do we do with it? We can send it to the people we know, but that doesn't make sense, because, as you know, we have to activate 50,000 people. So we're only successful if we can scale it up. And I think, or we think, that we can do it with big data, because that's the way we can have a maximum impact. Is this new? No. All these companies, and you all know them, are very successful in using big data to offer you personal offers. And that's the connection we made. If they can do it for commercial reasons, why can't we do it as a city to activate people? I googled some things about Tokyo before coming to here, and suddenly they send it to me, the best restaurants, the cheap tickets to come here, the best books about Tokyo. So that's something we want to do with activation as well. But then we started to think big data. We are a sports department. Where will we find this big data? Well, every city has got plenty of data about their citizens. Events is one of the examples. This is the Belgian Cup volleyball held every year in Antwerp. This is our biggest venue. In this picture there are 15,000 people attending the game. But 1 hour after this game, they're all gone and we know nothing about them. What we want to do now, in the future, is capturing those data and do something with it. We have a city card, it's called A-card in Antwerp, and a lot of cities have that kind of cards. It's a card where you can go to the library, you can go to the swimming pool, you can go to a museum. We have all those data. We know the preferences of the people, we know where they live, we know their age, we know their gender. We have a lot of customers. We, for example, organize sport camps for 12,000 children every year. We have all the data of the children and their parents. We know their addresses, we know where they live. So what we want to do is use these data to activate people, to send them tailored offers. So we get all those data, and now we have to filter those profiles out of it. And once we do that, we want to send them a personalized suggestion, so that they don't have to search anymore for an offer that for information, but that we can offer them a solution to their own barriers. And of course, we have to develop, because it's still a work in progress, is in full compliance with the GDPR legislation, but I think we can manage that. That was in short how we went to do it, what we are developing, and we're still on our way. But I already have some key challenges. The first thing, and that's not an important one, is knowledge. We are a sports department, so we don't know anything about big data. We have a lot of masters in physical activity and etc. Sports fans, marathon runners. We have a lot of knowledge about that, but not about big data. So if we want to start with this, we have to invest in different profiles. So that's something difficult. Research, as I said, I see that there are a lot of cities sometimes starting doing things without research. I would recommend to invest in it, because sometimes you learn, or most of the time you learn a lot of things you didn't know. Clean data is the next one where we're struggling with. We have a lot of data, as I told you, but it's not always clean data. So it's something we have to work on it. Money, it's not cheap if you start working with big data, but okay, I think it's something we have to deal with it. And of course the legislation where I talked to you, we have to, as a city, and also every company has to do it, we have to be in full compliance with that legislation. And to end up my presentation, some key learnings and recommendations. Learn from others. There are a lot of companies who are much more further and have much more experience with big data than we have. So learn from them, invest in research, I already said that. Invest in knowledge, but also buy knowledge. You need money for that, I said it, but that's the world. Think big and dream big. If commercial companies can reach a lot with big data, we have to do it as well. And to end, start.
Thanks a lot. So maybe